There are things in this world we cannot explain, something hidden just beyond our view. Journey with us as we attempt to pierce the veil between our world and theirs. Join us as we pass through the doorway to the dead.
Join us at WLFE-DB.com for upcoming shows and so much more.
Welcome into the Doorway to the Dead, Episode 2. We are live right now at the 1912 Hoover House, the historic 1912 Hoover House. You recognize Jim and I. We got a special guest with us, Miss Shetan Noir of Michigan, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And she's back by popular demand, and she's going to talk all about the cryptids of Michigan and the lakes and the rivers and streams and all things supernatural.
Shetan is on several weeks, correct? You're on the road for a couple weeks? Actually, I will be hopefully back home in my own bed. Not that I don't mind sleeping in other establishments, but there's something nice about going home to your bed. But hopefully I will be home by June 13th and be back off the road. And then I get the fun process of writing all my articles and
So she's here doing research. As we've said before, she's an editor and a publisher for a number of different magazines concerning all things paranormal, from UFOs, cryptozoology, spirits, and so she is in town she's staying with us for several days here at the Hoover House, and then she will be going into Gettysburg tomorrow and talking with Pam and Steve in their store, getting sort of a bird's eye view of equipment and that ended the game.
yes.
And also talking with their good friends Kayla Miner and Mark about Mark Nesbitt publishing books and doing the ghost tours. So she's getting a lot of information about a wide range of things affecting the paranormal community. So we feel real privileged to have her tonight to be able to do a live one-on-one. And this woman is just so experienced and has so many fabulous tales. And every time I talk with her, I learn something new. I want to throw this out right at the top because I don't want to forget it.
Okay.
It's so good. From several shows ago, you were discussing the importance of peppermint and rosemary and other kind of herbs as a purifier that helps.
Well, it's not purifying, it is a protective element. Yes.
And so, she uses peppermint and bark to eat. She uses peppermint.
Yep. You can get peppermint oil is so easy to extract from the peppermint plants, actually, that it's never fake. It's never imitation peppermint. It's always 100% real thing. So you can get it in the candies. You can get it in the wonderful chocolate peppermint candies that they come out with during the holiday season. It's a lot of people get the essential oils. Some people.
Yeah, I like the roll-on essential oils
the body soaps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it really is a good product to have. Anything with peppermint in it introduced to the paranormal because it's a good way to help keep things from attaching to you.
Oh, and that's the thing that came out today. She said that because of that protective aspect, that if you suddenly are maybe intolerant to peppermint, that it sort of have a negative effect with you, there's a likelihood you have an attachment.
Yeah, so if you've been to a paranormal location or you're doing that urban exploring that some people do, or you're investigating, haunted locations, and you get home and suddenly you can't eat a piece of peppermint candy, chances are you have an attachment. And the reason you can't eat that peppermint candy is it's actually the spirit that's attached to you is preventing you from eating it because it doesn't want to be stripped away from you. And that's what peppermint will do.
Fascinating. I just never come across that before. And I think any of us who've been in this field for any period of time have dealt with attachments. I think it's something that maybe we don't give enough thought to. And I know myself, I several times felt burdened or exhausted or things like that as a result of having a spirit sort of clouding. It doesn't mean the spirit doesn't have to be negative or evil. It can be a good spirit.
Right.
But it just sucks the energy.
Yep, it just becomes, it attaches to you, and it's kind of what I call the weighted net, syndrome. Is you think of a whale or a dolphin swimming through the ocean, and it gets caught up in the fisherman's net. Well, eventually, even though they are powerful animals, the weight of that net is going to keep pulling them down and down until they just give up, and that's what a paranormal entity will do. It just keeps dragging you down because it's using your energy to essentially, get its way in life. And so, if you have those attachments and it's weighing you down, then you have to do your work and find a way to remove it from you.
This, as I said, there's really no area of the weird and the paranormal that she's not involved with. I know some of the magazines and that she deals more exclusively with UFOs. Some with the cryptids and stuff. Some with the ghosts and the paranormal. And if you haven't, would you go ahead and refresh your memory?
Sure, I love talking about.
I suggest you go online and check some of them out.
So our magazine company's name is Squash GQ Magazine, and at that website, it's a .com, you can find all 6 of our magazines. Squash GQ, of course, that's our main magazine, but we also have Squash Digest, which is more scientific research and evidence evaluation. Talking to researchers who actually go out and do research, like Dr. Beth Goldrum, Ken Gerhardt, people who this is really the nuts and bolts of what they do. G Hunters is the paranormal, ghost hunting, all matters of the weird and unexplained. And
We're having sound issues. So what I'm going to do
and see if that works. And we got sound here. All right, can they hear us?
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
All right, there you go. Got it working again.
Okay, we'll have our guest with us shortly. She had to take a little pause, so she's been over in Gettysburg today. So we'll have her back shortly.
We'll have this worked out next time with the studio. We were trying to integrate our Tascam studio, and some reason the microphone on here was coming out the way it started. And then when I took that out of play.
Is the sound clear now? They getting reverb, or is the sound pretty clear?
It says, yeah, we're
Okay,
perfect.
good.
So.
Yeah, I'm talking to Jenny.
Okay.
Good.
So
We, while we're filling a little time here, wanted to say that we had an interesting thing happened here yesterday. Pam was sitting on the other side of the bar. I was sitting right here. In the back of us, there was a picture frame with her food certification certificate. And while we were talking, this was the afternoon, the picture lifted itself up about a half inch or so, sort of floated out and fell to the ground. And you see there's a shelf there that, sort of show. Oop,
no, you don't want to do that.
there's the shelf.
You want to do this.
Oh, okay. There's the shelf, guys. And you can see there's still nails up there. And somehow that thing came off, floated up, came up, fell to the ground, and busted out all the glass.
Yeah, and that's a screw in the wall, so it's solid.
Yeah, and they're still there.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that was about. Something obviously wanted to gain our attention.
Okay, so we got sound and audio back.
Sorry for all the delays and stuff. It's
We're trying to work with new systems to make things better for the show, and we're still working out the wrinkles.
also would like to thank everybody who came last Saturday. We had our initial investigation at James and Jess's
Our public
antique store.
investigation, yeah.
And come on over, Jerry. Come on. We're bringing our friend Jerry on here a second. This is our friend Jerry Swope.
Hello,
Jerry
everybody.
was an eyewitness to the investigations at the antique store.
Mhm.
So you want to give us a couple of reflections, something that stood out with you that night?
Well, had a couple of things there whenever we was doing what Dave around the dolls and whatnot. We had
And
a lot
there's
of interaction with
Religious relics and
religious relics and up around the
While you're
What,
there, I'm gonna-
the ramp at the bicycles. Had some activity up there as well.
we were getting
Also
some
at
really
the
good
booth.
direct responses though
Yeah,
with K2 hits.
yes. Also at the one booth where they had a lot of fishing pictures as well.
Here's Jerry with his,
Oh, Dave.
here's
I mean,
Jerry
Jim.
with his buddy doll.
Yeah,
And she was one who was speaking to him through K2, right?
yes.
You were getting responses. And of course, with Steve there, she's now a permanent resident of the Hoover House. But she likes you too, Jerry.
Can't believe this guy. The one booth, I like to go back and investigate that booth as well. It had a lot of fishing pictures there. Had some responses at that booth as well. I don't know who the spirit was there, but it was really strong there as well.
All right, I think our guest is ready to come back in.
So yeah, that was the first time, and we've already had Pam and Steve have already had several inquiries for scheduling another visit, and you said it's definitely a worthwhile investigation.
Really worthwhile.
What was it, about 4 hours you guys were there?
Three or four.
Three
Yeah.
or 4 hours.
Did we ever get the names of those dogs?
We got names originally, but I don't know if that was the correct names or if that was the names. I don't know if that was the names of the spirits attached to the dolls, or if that was the name the previous owner had given to the dolls.
And we know how we can check that out with our tables.
Right.
We'll see. We'll have to do that later this evening or tomorrow evening with our tables. See if they'll reveal the names of the spirits. So, is our guest ready? Are you ready, hon?
1 second.
Yeah. We've got a couple things going on here simultaneously. There's also some filming going on in the house tonight, and so there's some sections in the back. So it's a pretty busy place tonight.
Okay.
Welcome
Thank
in,
you, Jerry.
Michael Laciana. Thanks, Jerry. Welcome in, Michael Laciana, another good friend of ours, and also a good friend of our guest, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Mike is the one who told us to check about getting you as a guest.
Yeah, he was just recently covered on the Paranormal magazine.
Paranormal magazine.
Yes, the G Hunters.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're trying to get him
Have
back
at it.
on our show here.
Yep, I'm just gonna wiggle right in
There.
here. Had to go get some water.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go get a drink myself, so we're gonna
Give me one of my energy.
shift in over there.
And so this is not her first time to get us, but she's been down here before.
Yeah, I've been here a couple of different times, starting from when I was probably around 16. I think that was the first time that
Oh, wow.
I came here, and then I'm much older now, and I can drive on my own.
Aren't we all? Now, this is neat today. She's planning on being up in Vermont to do some of
Yes. Well, New York and Vermont.
New York, Vermont. So go, I'll let you tell what's in the works here.
So basically, I'm starting here in Waynesboro at the Hoover House, and I'm staying with you guys for a couple of days to explore your accommodations here, your B&B,
And she's going to have her first experience at table tipping.
Oh yes.
Yes, either
Yes.
depending on how things float, either tonight. That's why I've asked Jerry here. Jerry's
Oh,
an
awesome.
experienced
Awesome.
table tipper with
Yeah.
her. So
So
we'll definitely get that in, and then
Yep.
I'd love to once you experience, I'd love to get your reaction to that.
Sure. So I'm going to be visiting here for a couple days, and then going back from here into Gettysburg, and then back again, and then probably going out to Maryland on Saturday for the Covert Cliffs, because fossils and shark teeth.
Yeah, it's a
Like you're
great
gonna
place.
keep me. It's 2.5 hours away. Like you're gonna keep me away from that.
Right. That was a big thing. I'm from Maryland.
Yes.
And so all the high school.
I am always in search of that megalodon tooth. But I'm happy finding any little.
I actually got
Or
one
big
before,
shark.
not there though. We got
Oh,
we got it down in Florida, so that's
Oh,
sort of
okay.
cheap.
So then I leave early Sunday morning. I drive to Port Henry, New York, which is famous for Lake Champlain,
Lake Champlain.
Lake monster sightings. I will be getting a one-on-one tour of the, I don't know if that's a town or a city, but a wonderful lady with named Andrea with, I believe it's Champ Products. She's going to give me a tour of Port Henry and show me all the different spots that have something to do with Champ.
So do they have local call them clubs or whatever?
I do not know. And so that is that is a article that I'm working on, is actually, and it's going to be more for our travel magazine that I'm developing, which is Weird Travels. But that's
fascinating.
But it's going to document different, if you are a crypto tourist and lake monsters are your thing, Champ gives you different destinations to go explore. But I am, I bring this with me from when I was a full-time travel writer for the Lansing, Michigan Examiner. And I will not write about a place unless I have been there first.
Right.
Because I want to make sure that it actually lives up to the hype that, Anybody can post pictures on the internet and make something look amazing. But is it actually like that?
I
in
love
real
that
life?
idea, though. That is so cool.
Not
'Cause where do
to
you-
mention, I have to make sure it's safe. You know,
Right.
I won't write about a place that I don't think is safe for people to go. And, because to me, that is just bad journalism. So, my two things are, I want to make sure that the sites are actually real and places that people can, actually visit. And I want to make sure it's safe so that, the family of crypto, enthusiasts can say, hey, we're going to hit Port Henry, we're going to hit, in New York, and we're going to travel up the coast towards, Vermont, and then go into Burlington, Vermont, and go to, the Champ Trading Post and the Echo Center that has, Champ exhibit, and, all these little, hole-in-the-wall places that might have something to do with Champ. Well, now I get to document them. And so that people, if this is an interest, if this is a passion, this is something that they can go pursue.
That is a great idea. I love that. I mean, that's a void that's being filled by your magazine.
And so the weird travels, we are all familiar with like some of the different travel destination magazines out there, but you can only document and write about a certain pumpkin festival or apple orchard or wine vineyard so often, and it gets kind of boring. But when you open up the possibilities of haunted locations, being able to go, like I said, Saturday we're going to Maryland for shark teeth to look for them. I'll be documenting that. Going to the Natural History Museum there that has, on display the different types of shark teeth, because this is something people are interested in. People want to go out and have those personal experiences for themselves. So, gem mining, fossil collecting, gold prospecting, Bigfooting, looking for cryptids, going to, UFO sighting locations. People want to go explore these things, but they just need the clues and the directions on how to get there. And what to look for when they get there.
Have you ever been down to Florida on the West Coast, just below Tampa, Casper
I've
Beach?
never been. I haven't been. I've been to New Orleans.
Okay.
I have not been lower than that, but
the reason I mention it is with that Calvert Cliffs.
Yes.
The Venice Beach and the Casperton Beach, they're sort of like, down the thing. Evidently, there's a structure out in the Gulf, several miles out, and it's on the floor of the Gulf, and it channels and funnels all these fossilized sea bones and whatnot, including megalodon teeth.
Oh, yes.
And but I mean, raised back bones, all that.
Who
kind of
wouldn't want a shark tooth the size of your hand? I mean, come on. Compare it to my head.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want that shark tooth? Come on. That's,
So the locals there, they've actually built these little screening nets.
Yes.
All it is, it's a fine, screen for the sand, and just literally feet off of the beach.
Yep.
They just scoop this stuff up one and two, so you can go with your kids.
Yep, and you just
oh my! And there's no, evidently, you don't need a permit now. If you're out there specifically for some of the larger fossilized remains, there is a permit that you can print online. I think it costs you $5. But you're allowed to keep that material.
Yeah.
We went there a couple years ago with some friends of ours, and they had all the tools set up there.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I literally got jars of fossilized shark's teeth, all different species. And when I was working with the Cub Scouts, I was giving the kids away all these shark's teeth. They thought it was the coolest thing. But if you're ever down there, it's below Tampa, going on the west side.
Yeah, I've done some research into it, so that might be on next year's winter travel list.
They've got the megalodon teeth 20, 30 feet off of the shore. I mean, you're not out there. You don't have to be that far out. So I just thinking of you at that. You just loved it. I loved it. I was even getting around with my bum leg.
That, yeah.
Now while we were talking about the sea creatures and that, a thought came to mind. Has there ever been a case where a person was suspectedly harmed or killed by any of these creatures?
So the thing that I always tell people is in order for a report to be made, the human being actually has to make it back to civilization and report it to someone. And if they're killed, if they are eaten, if they are maimed, and they die before they can make that, then all we really have is the
Missing persons.
well, we have a missing.
But I'm saying if there was a group,
But
like
if we
say
find
3
the
or 4,
remains, you know, authorities usually go through their checks and balances of, okay, what could have possibly happened? So they will blame it on, you know, a shark or different types of fish, you know, with actual teeth, other than sharks.
Barracuda, that type of thing.
yeah, because the guy
they'll blame
who
it
did
on
the
being,
monster
you know,
fish show. I mean, some of these.
Yeah,
Oh my
and, you know,
gosh.
they'll blame it on, you know, the person was swimming or, you know, was out in the water at night and a boat propeller hit them or, you know, something like that. So the last thing that they're going to say is, wow, a plesiosaur got him.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it wouldn't be a plesiosaur because the plesiosaurs, their heads were small. They were, you know, their heads were designed for grabbing small fish and swallowing them down that neck. But our other prehistoric marine predator, the mosasaur. Now this guy,
I'm not familiar with.
the mosasaur. So think a creature with the jaws of a crocodile. Okay, picture this. Jaws of the crocodile, a long tail, kind of like a lizard, and flippers.
Almost like.
And they range in size from anything from 6 foot up to 50 feet.
Wow. And are they,
Lyophilodon was the most.
you know that thing, are they, because I know another ancient fish going way back is the gar.
Mm-hmm.
Are they somehow related?
So the garfish, the sturgeons, they are very ancient fish, but they are developed more along the lines from the placoderms, which are these big armor-plated fish.
Okay, right.
So imagine a school bus coming at you that is a tank of a fish, and the way that they're going to kill you is they have the jaws of life. And once they slam down on you, they basically pulverize you and slice you in half. And then they go about their business. They are a very ugly fish. And they've actually been found in fossil beds around Ohio. So they were here.
So they were in
these
fresh. Now, at the time, were they seas or were they considered fresh? You think they were fresh water?
So the thing about the age of fish is that it was the longest period of developmental time on Earth. So the age of fishes is actually longer than the age of dinosaurs.
See, that's why I love talking with this lady, man.
The Paleozoic time, the age of fishes, this is where we see the fishes ruling Earth. And at certain points, the fish, like the placoderms, were bigger than the sharks. And then you get a shift in power where the megalodons, things like that, start to take over, and the fish get smaller. But we've got so many unique fish, or sharks within that. One of the issues, or one of the magazines that we're working on for the company of Squatch GQ is Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures. Our first issue is going to be ancient sharks. And it's not just going to be Megalodon, even though everybody loves Megalodon, and that's like the all-star, quarterback of the ancient. It's not just Megalodon. It is Helicoporium, the buzzsaw shark. These fossils that you see of this buzzsaw-like thing. This was a shark that was adapted to catching cephalopods. Now, what better way to catch a slimy, slippery, squid-like creature than to have a ratcheting jaw that can just,
When that age of fishes started, about how much of the world did they feel was underwater at that time?
Quite a bit.
We're dealing
this would have been
3/4 of the world.
Yeah, this would have been, we start out with like little, algae and planktons and the trilobites, and then you've got the sea scorpions, which are really wicked little creatures. And then you get up into the fishes, and then you have what's called Hell's Aquarium, where you have megalodons swimming around and eating whatever they want.
Yeah.
The megalodon's only predator was a orca type whale called Leviathan, who was bigger than Megalodon and could bite off Megalodon's tail and kill them, and then feast on them.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I watched Shark Week a few years back, and they had this big thing about Megalodon, and they had this footage, and could this be a Megalodon still alive? And then you found out it was all fake.
Right.
I got to be honest with you. I was heartbroken. I was like, how cool
But
is
you
it
know,
still alive?
the thing about it is there are researchers out there, there are paleontologists out there, biologists out there who will say, no, Megalodon's dead and gone. The only problem with that is our oceans are so big and so deep and so vast.
Oh, yeah. It's like space.
Humans cannot not document and control and watch every inch of the oceans at the same time. So these creatures can move wherever they want, and every year new species, aquatic species, are being found. Because why? Because the oceans have so much potential for uncharted life forms.
Well, it's like space. There's too many places that we haven't investigated.
Exactly,
yet, you know?
exactly.
And I think one way to kind of fast forward that the theories is maybe if they found a megalodon tooth that didn't date back thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, it dated back 90 years.
But see, the thing about it is,
years.
so like we were just talking about collecting the megalodon tooth. So let's say there is a meg or a group of megs out there swimming, and we know from great white sharks that, you know, their teeth pop out like popcorn, you know, whenever they're biting anything. But most people who come across that, if it's not a biologist or a paleontologist or, you know
what it is.
no, they're going to know what it is, but it's going to go in their private collection.
Yeah.
It's going to go up on their bookshelf or
Damn right.
in a shadow box. They're not going to turn it over to like any museum or anything like that, because you're never going to get back.
Right,
But,
look at the
yeah.
value of, you know,
Oh, yeah.
really, what's mine, about 5 inches maybe? That one?
Oh, it's six and a half inches.
Yeah, I got a giant, and
Yeah.
they're up in hundreds now.
Yeah, even the fake ones are like a couple $100.
Wow.
So here's my next question. Of all the plesiosaurus type cryptids that have had reports of being sighted, Lake Champlain, you had Champ, they have Nessie, Chessie down in Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, Cressy, Ogopogo.
Of course, Loch Ness Monster, all of these.
Yes.
Of all those ones that you've researched, which one have you seen the most compelling evidence for, as far as video documentation or something like that?
So I'm thinking if these creatures are out there, they're not going to be the massive size that we would expect or we would dream that they would be. They're going to probably be something smaller, probably like within a 10-foot size, because when we look at sharks, when we look at dolphins, that's about the size that they're reaching before humans actually, or
interrupt their natural ecological habitat.
Exactly. So about 10 foot is usually about the length and size that one of these creatures reaches before either a predator takes them out or human encroachment takes them out. And we see that the impact that the fishing industries have on whales.
Yeah.
And dolphins and sharks to begin with. And not just, from their overfishing, but leaving their nets out. And like I was talking about earlier, these nets, they entangle these species and then they just drag them down. And you have huge humpback whales who struggle to make it to the surface to breathe. And this, when they're struggling like this and they're trying to swim with these, heavy fishing nets on them that are hooked to them, they can only do that for a matter of time before it's just too much of a labor and they start to drown. So if you have other, we see it with sea turtles. One of our biggest marine reptiles that's left on the earth. We see it with saltwater crocodiles. We see it with alligators. These species that live in the water, humans need to do their due diligence and clean up after themselves. Pull those stupid fishing nets out. If you're, just don't leave them there because it's going to kill everything. And that means any chance that we might have of finding a plesiosaur, mosasaur, or anything like that, if they're caught up in these nets, then they're just going to sink to the bottom and we're never going to see them.
Now, in talking to you this afternoon, you had mentioned something I also found fascinating, going up and checking on Champy like you had plans. You had said that on the Canadian side, there were in some of the cliffs and that, there were some of the ancient Indians.
So yeah, and this was information that was brought to my attention by fellow researchers Scott Martis and Kirax St. Lorraine. And apparently across the border into Canada, there are hiking trails that lead you up into the mountains that show these
Pictographs.
of Champ, of the Native American drawings of Champ. Now, I personally have not seen that. And seeing as the Canadian borders are not open for us to cross over, the chances of actually, me getting there are kind of,
But it's pretty
I'm not going to get in
fascinating.
trouble,
But it's fascinating because reports that some of those ancient inhabitants actually, they would have just depicted something that they had visualized.
Well, and our producer Ted brings up a good point. Says, I just saw the show on a giant squid, which he thought was an awesome show.
Yes.
But for the longest time, those were considered
The
monsters.
Kraken,
Right, the
the
Kraken.
Kraken or
Yes.
we pronounce it Kraken by in the Netherlands, it's Kraken.
Yeah.
Okay?
And he said, but they really exist. Wouldn't it make sense
But
that
so the interesting
all these
thing
aquatic
is,
creatures can
we've got-
evolve into something small?
We've got the giant octopus, we got the giant squid, but there's also the colossal squid. So the giant squid is longer, the colossal squid is wider in dimension, has a thicker, heavier body.
Oh, so the quote unquote
There
head part
are
is.
two different distinct species, and we are just getting evidence of them. It's literally coming out because we know that the
So
squids.
there's the giant and then there's the colossal.
Right.
And
species.
yes, and who knows? There could be other things down there. The only reason we're finding these is because the whales that eat them sometimes don't get the whole creature. Sometimes they bite off a tentacle and it floats to the top.
Yeah.
And but we've documented them, and Doug Hychek, the producer of Monster Quest, was able to catch what we believe was a giant squid
I remember seeing that
on one of his underwater camera traps.
cameras.
And this is, that is concrete proof that there is something down there that is bigger than our little Humboldt squid.
And isn't it generally felt that most of the ancient mariners, these sea monsters that they often reported, like on ships and all that, it's often felt it was these giant or colossal squids that the sailors were basically did.
But if so let's think back to ancient mariners, and what do you do with your trash?
Throw it overboard. And
What do you do with dead bodies?
Throw it overboard.
Because some of these ships, unfortunately, were transporting slaves. What do you do with a dead body? You throw it overboard.
Yeah.
So you get this process of predatory, fish, sharks and stuff like that, following these boats.
Never thought of that.
And season after season, they know these shipping lanes because they come back to the feeding ground.
This is easy meals. But when you get the sharks drawing in, and you get the smaller whales and dolphins being drawn in, suddenly you have these other predators that are following up, because predators follow the food source.
I don't think I want to be buried at sea. There's something, it's not too appealing about that.
Well, and it's funny she said that they follow the food source, because if I'm not mistaken, we had you on, I think it was the first time we had you on the show, we were talking about Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
Yes.
And how in the area between Chambersburg, where we live, Waynesboro here, and the Gettysburg, Aspers area, there are a lot of cherry and apple orchards.
Yep.
And a lot of people have reported sightings of some type of.
They follow, the food sources, and so it begins in the spring with young fawns, deer who get hit by cars. This is natural food sources, and then the berries start coming to season, so they're eating the berries. Then the stone fruit like apples and peaches and cherries and stuff like that, those come into season, so they're gobbling those down. But they're also eating, they're supplementing that with seeds and stuff like that, because humans cannot exist on a just fruit diet, because it'll burn right through us.
Yes.
And it's the same, the Sasquatches have a little bit, they have the same digestive, issues. So they want a well-balanced diet too. So they're chewing on young grasses and bamboos and stuff like that. Because it all helps and it all fills them up, and it's all food and nutrition. Taking case the grizzly bear, one of the biggest, toughest, creatures that you would not want to come into contact with, if you're out hiking. And what do they fatten themselves up with? Moth larvae. That's what they do in Yellowstone. They are literally walking around and they're digging up these moth larvae and they're eating them. And that is a huge protein and fat source.
And that's why you find a lot of the trees missing bark at the lower levels, because they're ripping it off to get to that.
Yep.
Wow. That's wow.
Oh, there's
Take
big
a lot
fat
of
white grubs.
But that's what they do. It's not like they have a 9-to-5 job. Their only job in life is to eat, sleep, produce more, whatever species there, produce more of themselves, eat, sleep, produce more. And
Eat, sleep, procreate. Sounds like a life for me.
And that's, as long as they can find a source and a way of getting to it, then they're going to continue getting to it.
And like you said, to see, I remember quite vividly a couple of years ago, they had a documentary where in some of these, miles down in the bottom of the ocean, there's these volcanic craters, and you have
the tube
steam coming up. And these
worms.
animals are living in this 10,000 degree temperature.
Where scientists said for so long that nothing could live at those depths. Well, we have these thermal water areas, and these tube worms are living just fine.
Yeah.
But you also have to realize when a humpback whale or a blue whale dies and sinks to the bottom, everything in creation that is aquatic is feeding off of it. And so that carcass might sit there for a good year to 18 months, but every creature is going to eat off of it. It's going to float for a long time, and the sharks are going to come in like the dinner bells being rang, and they are just going to gorge themselves until they're so fat that,
I remember I was on the Outer Banks of Carolina years ago, and a pilot whale had beached and died. And of course, the Park Service was in the process of even a pilot whale, which is so small compared. I mean, you don't realize how large these creatures are looking up, right up front. So they recently, I think last week, they had a picture on, I think it was on Facebook, of a large boat in the ocean, these large and a blue whale underneath it, trapped. And I mean, it just swallowed it up. Oh my gosh. You probably could have fit 15, 20 boats in that same space.
Was it like a passenger boat, or was it like a shipping vessel?
Shipping vessel.
Yeah.
And just the way the blue whale was, it was like right underneath this. And you're like, oh my God. It's like
the size of them. They're just so immense. And when one of these dies, whether it's from old age or a disease, they basically are the food source of the ocean, and everything is feeding off of them. And even when they wash up on shore, you've got the seagulls eating on them. If it's in Alaska, you've got, the bears are feeding on it, the wolves will feed on it. Nothing goes to waste.
And that's what you're talking about right now is why I never really use, people say, well, if there were Bigfoot, how come we haven't discovered a skeletal remains? Exactly.
Because nature.
Bigfoot is big food.
Nature is the great equalizer, and so you take any dead body, you put it in the woods, and you put up some stationary cameras. I know morbid, but you put up these, GoPro cameras, whatever,
going to be
and you will watch, and you will see that everything in the woods is going to come eat off that. Right down to the chipmunks and the rats, they are going to come. They will be the last ones to come. They will come and they will take the bones. Because what are bones? They are calcium. They are magnesium. They are elements, minerals that are very hard to come by in nature. So you have these small animals who come, possums, raccoons. They take these bones, they chew them, they get that calcium, because calcium equals stronger bones, stronger offspring, and so nothing goes to waste.
See, Jerry's a hunter, and he hunts deer. And how many times? I mean, I'm not saying you've never seen one, but with all the deer we have, and they're pretty plentiful in this region, you don't see many deer carcasses
Right.
laying out in the woods.
Jerry eats them all.
You might see them alongside the road, but
Yeah,
there's
right.
other things that come and drag those off and enjoy
But
that
seriously,
together.
do you? I mean, you don't see.
Not many.
Deer. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen them before. I've
because
seen,
you
them,
have-
but they're
yeah.
pretty rare.
No, because you got coyotes and.
You got a whole
Exactly.
forest, a whole wooded area of other creatures who are going to live off of that.
Right.
And
Raccoons and.
speaking of which, one of the ones that, again, that you would introduce us to that we had never really even heard of, that would love to feast off the carcass of a Bigfoot would be the Dogman.
So I have talked to several different Bigfoot researchers who also have knowledge of Dogman, and the statement's always the same. When Dogman moves in, Bigfoot leaves, because it's the pack
Top of the
mentality.
food chain.
And you have one alpha predator who might be a male, but might be a female with young, and you think she's going to go up against a pack?
Is that?
Is that
Oh,
John?
that.
Okay.
Okay. Thought we had another door opening and closing here, guys.
The last thing a mother with young wants to do is take on a pack. She's going to remove herself from the situation, even if it means giving up,
Guaranteed food
supplies and, habitat and resources. She's going to remove herself from that, her and her young from that situation, because the hunter doesn't want to become the hunted. And so when you've got Dogman, it's not the Dogman that you see that you have to worry about. I mean, you do, because it's
And
always
Dogman,
never a good thing.
The
But it's the
numbers are
ones-
much more.
The ones that are surrounding you, and you're
So
not going
they-
to outrun them.
Kind of like the Velociraptor. How they
Or a
hunt.
wolf pack,
Okay.
wolf pack.
How there's one that shows itself, so you
Yep.
focus on it, so you don't see these two circling.
Have you ever read any of David Plaidy's books, The Missing Four?
No, but David, if you're watching this, hi, I'm Shetan Noir. I've been trying to get a hold of you to interview
He's tough.
you
He's tough. I've been
for a
to
while now. Please contact me. You can find me on Facebook, Shetan Noir. I would love to interview you for any of the magazines that I write for.
Yeah, that would be a great read. I'm just curious because there's so many, there's a lot of similarities in some of these
Yeah.
weird cases,
Mhm.
and I'm just wondering if not that we have any proof that it's Dogman or Bigfoot, but I mean some of the what I call like fear factor presentation, the way the guys barefooted and climbed a tree to basically degrade his body, it's obvious that he saw something that scared the crap out of him, that pain and everything else superseded that. And a lot of times these guys are armed, and sometimes, the bullet hasn't been fired or whatever. So I often have felt that if it's not Bigfoot or Dogman, it certainly is
So
something.
here's the thing about even if you're armed and protected. So if you're up in a tree stand and you're aiming at something, you're in anticipation that you're going to shoot something. When you're out hiking and your firearm is concealed in your carrier or wherever you have it, and you're walking down a trail and you come across a big predator, whether it's a grizzly, mountain lion, Bigfoot, Dogman, the time that it takes you to draw that weapon, the animal's already right now. Grizzly bears can travel 30 feet in 5 seconds. Can you pull out a gun and get that shot off?
Right? And that's a grizzly bear.
That's a grizzly bear.
So Bigfoot,
Look in that front parlor,
is
by the
a
way.
fraction of that.
Most people at that point are trying to run, and their brain is trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, that distance is being closed. That's a grizzly bear. Now, if you come across a mountain lion, that's an ambush predator. You're not going to realize that animal's there until it's biting you to the back of your neck or your head.
That's right. You mentioned that
And
before. how
then
they would
let's see you try to get out your mace, your pepper spray, your gun, your knife, while you're being basically shaken to death, by an animal that wants you for dinner. And so, not that I'm saying anything bad about grizzlies or mountain lions,
Yeah.
but they are natural predators. Humans are on the menu, and when you go into their world, you have to realize that you are on the menu.
And Colette said, "What's the difference between Dogman and Bigfoot?" And Ted had said he's fascinated with Dogman. He's a huge lichen fan. Native indigenous people claim that Bigfoot and Dogman are a cross species. Dogman is of the canine species, dog-like head, long snout.
So Bigfoot is a primate. We have, the little tiny guys, the gibbous and stuff like that, the itty bitty tiny ones over here. And then you've got Bigfoot, who is kind of up here, and then humans who are kind of up here, and then Neanderthals right here. The human evolutionary tree is not really a tree, it's more like a shrubbery. With lots of points that still are being discovered. Now, Dogman is a canine creature, and I'm going to break a lot of hearts right now. Dogman is not a werewolf. It's not a wolfman. It's not a skinwalker. It's not a wendigo. These are all separate creatures. Dogman is a creature that is always in upright canine form. Doesn't matter what phase of the moon it is, whether they were born in the 7th year, whether they are the 7th son.
That's his presentation.
That's a werewolf. That is the folklore of the werewolf. Rougarou, also a werewolf type creature, but it is considered more of a curse where you are bitten or clawed by the animal, and then they pass the Rougarou curse onto you. You have to then go bite or claw somebody and pass it on to them. And usually it's a family member. Wendigos is a parasitic demonic entity, basically. It possesses somebody to do very bad things, including cannibalism, including chewing off all your fingers,
In
your
what
lips.
culture does that Wendigo?
So the Wendigo is primarily Native American.
Okay.
The Northwest.
Would it be similar to the jinn in other cultures?
No, this is see, a jinn is basically kind of a genie type creature
Okay.
where humans have some control over it.
Okay. So the Wendigo is
The
it's an
Wendigo
entity
is
unto
a
itself.
creature that you encounter that totally takes you over.
It's a possession.
It's a parasitic demonic possession. You become the host.
What
the creature.
sparks that?
So we really don't know, but the Native Americans believe so strongly in this that they don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about Wendigo. They don't want to talk about skinwalkers.
Sort of like a demon given rise or
Right.
observation
Right.
who gives it power. So
Right.
it's the same.
Exactly, and
Wow,
they
that's
believe that if you talk about it, it draws you to you. Now, the skinwalkers are a completely different thing. Also, a skinwalker is a Native American shaman who has chosen to take up the dark arts, who has decided to go to the dark side, and they are doing it usually for monetary gain, usually for revenge for someone, and they basically hire themselves out, and they for a price, there's always a price to pay, they will do your bidding. So they're all different.
They're like a shamanic mercenary, basically.
But the skinwalker part comes in. Whatever animal skin that they have, that's the creature that they can turn into.
Now, I think you had told me earlier a good way to depict or see the dogman, because you said the way they present. Sometimes in the ancient Egyptian
Anubis.
Yes,
Yep.
with
Anubis,
those long
yeah.
snouts and it's like
So, think about it. So, going back to ancient Egypt, Samaria, they all had these half human or humanoid type gods that they worshiped, with Anubis being a very central part of their belief system. And to me, if you are going to make depictions, if you are going to pass this knowledge on to future generations, there has to be some truth to that. So at some point, they had to have had some type of contact with these creatures, whether they're alien,
There's some kind of reality built into the presentation.
whether they're alien, whether they're interdimensional, and they are just, they come and go when they please. Humans had some exposure to them, and it made such an impact on them that they chose to document it for further, generations to know about. Why else would you, with a chisel and a hammer, why else would you etch these into
Now,
rock?
Egypt, I know you've got the River Nile and you've got green vegetation where the
Mhm.
Nile is. It's the river of life. But most of Egypt is not of that type of vegetation. Am I correct? I mean,
Well, so we do know that throughout history, the Nile has changed her course.
okay.
And just like with any aquatic farming system, when that sediment, when that nutrients gets spread out across the land, then things are going to bloom. So even though Egypt is a very dry, very sandy place, they still have water. They still have lush areas that things grow. But they found a way. The plants, the animals, the people have found a way to live there and adapt.
And what they have crocodiles in the Nile.
Yes.
It's basically the
Saltwater crocodiles.
Yeah, saltwater crocodiles.
The Nile crocodiles.
So so there's an adaptation there.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, it's it really is a lot of food for thought and all that.
Right, and with that, we'll think about it while we take our commercial break.
Okay.
Mhm.
WLFE Digital Network is now on digital television. If you're into ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, and the creepy, then WLFE has a TV channel for you, Paranormal View. Watch all of your favorite WLFE video talk shows on one channel. Shows like Paratalk Radio, Step Into the Paranormal, Skeptical Help Bar, The Creepy Parlor, and more. Looking for something else? Do you support the LGBTQ plus community? WLFE has brought all of their LGBTQ shows like Inside the Drag Closet, Everything Yet Nothing, Across the Pond, and Rainbow Soul all into one place. A new TV channel called LGBTQ Friends. The third channel is a Variety Unlimited. Here you'll find a wide variety of talk shows you know and love, like Just Cindy, Card Pulls and Coffee, Real Talk with Nom, The Bipolar DMs, Meet the Author, and Movie Review 5. The best part of watching these shows is that they're all available to watch at one location, one website, WLFE-DB.com.
You are listening to WLFE-DBRadio.com, where our shows are your shows.
Listen to the WLFE-DB podcast, available on Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Check out shows like Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and Step Into the Paranormal. Now, on to your favorite podcast app.
This is Dominic Santasero with Real Talk with Dom. You are listening to WLFE-DBRadio.com, where our shows are your shows.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Casey DeVille, the better half of DeVille Inc., Baltimore, Maryland. If you're ever in Baltimore, stop in and see me and Tony. Invisible Bree, 5920 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Give us a call if you're in the area at 410-400-9641, or look us up on the web at DeVilleInc.com. DeVille Inc., where we specialize in you.
Oh yeah, life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
You're listening to WLFE DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
Chuck, and Pam, and Steve will be
All
here.
right, and we're back. Thanks, everybody. Jim, I believe you had something you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, in talking earlier to Shetan, she actually has a lot of equipment with her for her expedition on these waterways.
I have a truckload.
And I just thought it would be interesting. Most of us haven't done any investigation into those fields, and so I just thought it might be of interest.
So this one's kind of new for me because this is the first time I'm actually going out on a lake with a team, or actually even myself, to look for something. So how do you find something that's underneath the water? You have to be able to see under the water. So one of the things, once I decided that I was going to be part of the expedition, was to come up with a camera trap, an underwater camera trap. Now, not being a millionaire, far from it, you know, I was trying to think, what could I do that's low impact, but is going to get me pictures, get me sound, and plus I can tow along, because I am basically in an 8-foot kayak, you know, paddling along by myself. I'm sure there's going to be 1 or 2 other researchers who are nearby doing their own experiments, but so this is what I came up with. So everybody's seen those $1 pool noodles at the stores. Of course, everything I own is teal, aqua, turquoise, except for my new kayak, which is orange, but that will change as soon as I get some spray paint. But so my pool noodles are this teal color. So I went and got small hula hoops and cut those, you know, so that there was an opening, fed them into the pool noodles. So I have a double stack of pool noodles. Now pool noodles, I researched it, they will support up to 120 pounds. So with 2 of them stacked together, that's, you know,
it's almost enough to hold me.
You know, pretty strong. So, but then I'm like, okay, so I've got the flotation part. What am I going to suspend from underneath of it? So this is where the fun part comes in, because you're going to different stores and you're like, nope, because that's got a tinted color and that might, you know, disorient the camera. And so finally you find a clear, you know, container with a screw on top, and you're like, this could hold cookies, but it's going to hold a water trap. And so, and then you're carefully cutting, you know, you're putting your GoPro cameras and your sound recorders and stuff like that on your thick insulation foam, you know, that you get from Joann Fabrics. Most people use it for chair cushions, but you're cutting, you know, the exact size of the camera trap or the camera and stuff into it, and then you're fitting it in there. And then you're like, okay, screw the top on, and it floats. And you're like, no, I want it under the water. So then you have to figure out, how am I going to weigh this down? Pennies. Pennies in a Ziploc container. I don't know how many I have. Okay. I do know it's about like 5 pounds worth of pennies. So that is going to, and there's ropes that attach it to the floating, you know, the floating pool noodles. And so this hangs underneath the water about 4 feet, which gives me enough area underneath the water so that I can see, or actually not me, but my GoPro, my sound recorder can pick up anything that might be in the water within 50 feet.
I was going to ask you what kind of range you thought. Okay.
And you know, because it's floating, I can have a line tethered to it, and I can let it feed out as long as I don't plan on going into anything deeper than 20 feet of water.
Now, are you recording or are you watching a screen?
I will be.
Going?
So for that particular trap, it's recording on its own.
Okay.
So literally, I unscrew the thing, turn on everything, screw it back, you know, the top back on, and it goes underneath the water. It's waterproof in there. It records for as long as I'm on the lake, and then when I pull it back out, let's see what we got. But I also have like a fish finder and stuff like that, which I can monitor, you know, what's swimming underneath my boat, you know, and if there's anything that looks like a plesiosaur, it's like, start taking pictures quickly. So, and then also in my kayak will be my little 7-pound min pin, and she's got one of the best noses on her, that I've ever seen on the canine. And so if she starts smelling anything that, you know, doesn't smell normal to her, then she's probably going to go on it.
A neat question. In any of these sightings of these various cryptos, do they discuss an odor or anything of it?
So with Bigfoot and Dogman, particularly Bigfoot, there is an odor, and it is always described as a very rancid, almost roadkill, skunky type smell. But this is a problem because there are certain things in nature that all have the smell. So skunks have the smell. Foxes have the smell. Catnip has the smell. Marijuana has the smell. And Bigfoots have the smell. So this very pungent. Now, of course, there's nothing stronger than dead skunk. You know, that's been hit.
Yes, I know.
You can smell that a half mile down the road.
Yes,
and,
you can.
And you're like, whoa. But on the other hand, if you've ever sat in a parking lot and had somebody get out of the car next to you and the like cloud of hot smoke follows them, it's the same smell.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Wow.
Well, we got a question here. The paranormal consultant wants to know if any lights or IR with that underwater camera rig of yours.
So it is just, I'm only going out during the daytime. I think it's, you know, when you're going out in a kayak at night, one, you need
by yourself
you
too.
need running lights or something because everybody
Sure.
else on the lake needs to know you're there. And by the time you start like putting up these big floodlights, say, hey, don't hit me. Everything else is kind of, you know, going to be kind of moving away.
Right.
You know, big lights like that do not help you at nighttime with fish. Fireworks, you know, they do go after fireworks. Glow sticks, they are attracted to the bioluminescent, not big, you know, glaring lights.
Right.
So, and also I wouldn't want to be out on the lake at night anyways, because if you do get in a bad situation where, let's say, Mr. Lake Monster wants to interact with you and flips you or something like that, then who's going to find you? Not till morning.
I've been in a graveyard filming by myself. And not that I'm afraid of Mr. Spirit or Energy coming out, but I'm afraid of Mr. Human lurking in the graveyard, knock me over the head and steal my equipment. So it really, the fear factor in a normal human cycle, you can't really investigate like that. It's
So
sort of,
it'll just be a GoPro camera, action camera that is, you know, in the underwater cap. Now, mounted onto my kayak, there will be, you know, a couple of action cameras with suction cup devices.
Gotcha.
And they will be kind of like a dash cam, you know, system where it's always recording as, you know, while I'm on lake, because you can sit there for 2 hours and be like, oh my God, there's nothing out here. And the second you blink your eyes, it could jump out of the water in front of you and be like, oh, really?
And Colette wants to know if you've ever actually encountered any of the creatures yourself.
So I have had one Bigfoot encounter. Luckily, I was in my Jeep at the time. And it was actually up in northern Minnesota. I was leaving my mom's house in Ely, Minnesota, and actually headed back to my home in Michigan. And so to get to Ely, Minnesota, or to get back from Ely, Minnesota, you basically drive to the middle of nowhere and then you drive past it until you find another human being. So you're literally driving a 2-track highway until you hit a 4. So as I'm going up the on-ramp to the 4-lane highway, my headlights, now I'm in a Jeep Wrangler Sport, very, you know, universal measurement, and it's headlight, thick hairy leg, tall grass, thick hairy leg, headlight. Wherever the head and chest of this creature was, it was higher than what my head was in the Jeep. Now, standing outside my Jeep, you know, the top of the roof of the Jeep would come up to about here. I mean, so as I'm, you know, and I'm only getting like a 10-second glimpse, 15-second glimpse as I'm coming around and going up onto the expressway. And so as your eyes travel up, it just keeps going up. So at about the top of the roof of my Jeep, that's about where the upper chest began.
Wow.
So the head and neck of this, the head and shoulders of this creature was like 7 foot or 8 foot above. Now I get up onto the 4-lane expressway and I'm like, what did I just see? Okay, I know it's early November. Black bears are already hibernating. They have already gone to den. You know, that's not a possibility. There are not moose normally seen in this area, but the hair was not right for a moose because I saw the hair on the legs, thick, shaggy hair on thick tree trunk-like legs. That is not a moose. Moose have horse-like legs with a fine velvet on them.
Right.
The upper body might have a shaggier hair, but the legs have that very fine, you know, like felty.
Non-coarse.
Yeah. You know, velvety skin or fur on them. So yes, I have had at least one Bigfoot sighting. Probably will have more in my lifetime.
Our friend Brian Bowden, they've encountered him and Alfred before. They work up in the New York area.
Okay.
And they're into the cryptos and all that stuff too, in addition to energy spirit. And they've had 1 or 2 encounters, I think, with Bigfoot up in the New York area. So yeah, people are having actual experiences with that.
Now, there's another one I wanted to think about when it comes to alien life and UFOs. You have a lot of people who claim to have been abducted or taken and then returned sometime later. Some with knowledge of what happened to them, some with no memory of what happened to them. I'm curious to know, has anyone ever come out and tried to report that they were abducted by a cryptid of any kind and held for a certain amount of time and then come back?
There are reports with the Bigfoots.
Okay.
Now, when we're talking about, you know, because Bigfoots all around the world, all around the country, they are different populations. So it's been documented in the south or the northern, the northwest areas of the United States, the Washington area. The Native American tribes there do talk about the Bigfoots will try to take women. And so there are certain areas where if you are a lone female traveling alone, they escort you from town to town.
Wow.
Because they see the Bigfoot as a potential being a kidnapper. Now, going a little bit more southern, there for a long time, the Native Americans in the southwest United States reported large, reddish-haired giants that were covered in hair that were cannibals. So this could possibly be a Wendigo report, but they had human-like feet, but giant feet. So it's thought that this particular branch of Sasquatch were cannibals, and they were actually catching humans and eating them. So we do know that humans have been taken by the Sasquatch, whether it's for breeding purposes or to be dinner. I guess it's kind of a roll of the dice of what your luck is.
I just didn't know if maybe there was, say, a child got lost and a quote-unquote family of Sasquatch maybe came across them and took them in, raised them.
I think there was a report just in the past year of that happening, but the child kept on describing it as a bear. That the bear took care of them.
Yes, I remember that reading about that.
And he could not give details whether it was the Bigfoot or whether it was actually a bear. Now, if it was a bear, it was probably a female who lost her cubs, and for whatever reason, that maternal instinct kicked in. This happens with like weird situations, like female lions will kill the mother gazelle, but then they will take on the baby gazelle and nurse it and take care of it until it gets too old, and then the other lionesses kill it. But this happens, this happens, cats who who adopt baby chicks and, or chickens who adopt kittens and will take care of kittens. I had, years ago, I had a female miniature pincher, and she raised a litter of 4 kittens. She didn't have any milk, but she cleaned them and everything. We bottle fed them, but that was her sole, focus, was to raise those kittens, as her own.
Well, and then, throughout history, we've had a number of individuals who've been humans that have been raised by supposedly wolves.
Yes. Yep.
The whole initiation of Rome, Romulus and Remus, and then you've got Caspar Hauser in Germany, which was very well documented and stuff. And they appeared to be young, very young children who really didn't have much memory.
Yeah, the maternal instinct, once it kept, we had another case. I had a beautiful English Springer Spaniel, and she was obsessed with, we never actually bred her, but she was obsessed with raising something. And whether it was one of those monkeys that had the Velcro arms, or she finally conned the cats into nursing off of her. And it was so weird because she taught this behavior to our female German Shepherd, who was a puppy at the time. And we would walk out into the yard, and the Shepherd would be just sitting there, and we'd be like, why are you just laying there? And then we'd walk around to the front of her, and there'd be 2 cats, adult, full-grown cats, nursing off of the German Shepherd. And it's like, what are you doing? But it was just a learned behavior. And for whatever reason, that maternal instinct kicks in, and they obsess about it. And so this is, if canines can do this, then other species can do this.
Absolutely. Now, you, I guess, seems an awful lot going on in the UFO world nowadays. I mean, alien. We're getting
this. I have to say, I am getting more and more into doing research into the UFOs and stuff of alien nature. It wasn't my first focus, but because I write articles and interview people about it, I'm getting more and more knowledgeable about it. But I'm still, I'm still learning. And so, but every little piece of the puzzle gives me new information. So I'm always, trying to check into different reports, but it's hard reading the real stuff from somebody's hoax stuff. And I get sent a lot of both. And it's like, okay, take a deep breath. And
the technology of the day really makes almost anything. You can produce whatever you want to produce, and it really looks great.
Yeah.
And we get that in the paranormal world.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
you can create a ghost very easily.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what field of research you love and are passionate about. There will always be somebody who can hoax evidence and contaminate, the research files, and it makes it that much harder. But you become that much more smarter as you're learning to disprove the hoaxers and the fake footage.
But like several years ago on the West Coast, off the coast of California, a rocket goes off out of the water. They filmed it.
Yeah.
There were people filming it. That wasn't a hoax. I mean, there were a number of people who filmed it. It was a large rocket, shoots up in the air, goes into orbit. United States denied they knew anything about it. Other countries denied they knew anything about it. And yet here was this major rocket that shot out of the water off the Pacific Ocean. And we never did hear anything. I mean, nobody owned up.
But now we're starting to get more and more intel because
it's just into space.
Around the Santa Catalina Islands, that's where they're seeing a lot of USO activity, which is submerged.
Yes. Well, I've been there, done that.
This comes into play with the released footage from the Nimitz, the Tic Tac UFO video, where our United States Air Force pilots were like, "The hell, this thing is running circles around us, and we have no explanation for it."
A friend of mine's father-in-law lives there in the LA area, and so when I've been out there, and he's he loves the ghosts, but he's really into the UFOs. We've been out on the beaches and with Geiger counters and picked up radioactivity. Now, what the hell's that about? I mean, you know, we're supposedly they seen some of these USOs.
But also keep in mind when the nuclear power plant in Japan.
Yes.
So those Fukushima.
Yeah.
When those waves of radiation were sent out into the water, we are now just
this was
seeing the
before.
effects of it.
Yeah, this was before that.
And it's coming in on our beaches. It's coming in on the sea life. And so we do have radioactivity out there. But that's not to say that, you know, these UFOs aren't, you know, creating us either.
I remember on Coast to Coast a number of years ago, they had a gentleman. Now here's a call, and he could have been a whack job. You don't know, but he called in and he identified himself.
Technical terminology, a whack job.
And he was in one of our submarines, nuclear submarines. And they picked up an object underwater. Now, and I couldn't tell you how fast those nuclear submarines go, but they can make some decent time under the water. And they picked up an object, and they had orders to follow it. And it was a mere 20 minutes lost. I mean, whatever it was running underwater was traveling 3 or 4 times their top speed. And they lost it. They followed it all told. They had it on track on the radars, whatever, for about 30 minutes. And then they still followed the path for maybe another 30 minutes. When they, and supposedly, according to this guy, when they came in back to shore, they were, the logs were requested and promptly removed. You know, and I don't know. This guy certainly sounded believable. That's not true. I know.
But, you know,
but,
you know, now is a different, you know, day and age, and people are, you know, questioning whether UFOs are real. They're questioning why our world governments are trying to, you know, hide this information when the aliens are zipping past the UFOs like, hey, you know.
And a lot of times there'll be multiple lights in the sky, and all of a sudden there's power failures. We know that a lot of these sightings are around military installations.
Here's the thing. I'm glad you brought up Fukushima, because I wonder, just out of pure curiosity, how many times people are reporting seeing a cryptid of certain kind, and maybe it's the normal animal that, say, when Chernobyl went down, and you had the city of Pripyat that was built for all the workers, so many miles away, but basically right there at the center of it, how many animals around there have been mutated? Someone sees it, oh my God, it's just
they come back.
But see, the thing about it is, we're not seeing like Godzilla. If anything, because they have been exposed to the nuclear radiation for so long, it's actually they have a shorter lifespan. They have lots of different biological defects. They are not like giants in any means. This can be, you know, documented with anything from the earthworms there to the catfish in the water to the dogs that are roaming, you know.
And that's the one that comes to mind for me is I'd seen the show where someone had reported seeing a chupacabra and had this on video, and it basically looked like a hairless dog, but it was a specific breed, if you remember watching that show. But I'm wondering, because the reports of the chupacabra so closely could resemble an unknown breed of, say, canine, may the people who've reported seeing a chupacabra have seen a canine that has been mutated in some way, whether it's radiation or you know, especially down in the South where they had a lot of those problems with these giant chemical companies dumping poisons in the water, and it was giving all these people cancer. You know, maybe some wild animals drinking out of a stream that had this and mutated in some way.
So, with that thought, okay, so chemicals contaminating water. We, you know, if we want to go that route, we need to look no further than the Ganges River in India, because there's so much pollution dumped into that river people bathe in this water. They drink out of this water.
Ooh.
India has, as a country, they have more birth defects
Right.
that are showing up in newborn children, and just all kinds of weird stuff. There was a guy who literally he has bark growing on him, tree
I
bark.
saw that. And they're famous for a lot of cleft palates, aren't
Cleft
they?
palates, nasal, nose issues, missing jaws. So if you want to look at biological side effects of human, pollution, that is
That's the epicenter of it.
That's the epicenter of that.
Okay.
You don't need nuclear radiation to cause defects. All you need is a fluid water source.
Right.
And millions of people drinking and using it. And this is the end result that you get is, all these defects that are being born. And it's very environmental. And so, we don't have to look to the realms of, hypothetical situations because it's already happening.
Right.
And, with the radiation that we see from the Chernobyl fallout and Fukushima, it's not improving species, it's degrading them.
Something just shook my chair. There's nothing here.
But environmental wise, look at the pollution that the Ganges River in India, the side effects that it has on the human population. Look at Lake Erie, the algae bloom that they have, and that lake is like horrific, like 25 miles in diameter. You cannot swim in that. You cannot drink from that. You don't want to get any fish from that.
Didn't it catch on fire one time?
Because it's actually
Cleveland.
It's actually
Cleveland.
Yeah, but this algae bloom is actually
The
toxic.
Cuyahoga River.
Yeah, Cuyahoga.
Yeah.
So it's a very toxic environmental, and it's because of all these pesticides and all this runoff that goes into the water. And Lake Erie just happens to be the perfect.
Is it still
environment for it?
Is it dead, or are there parts of it that are? Because there was a time when Lake Erie was considered dead. Is there some area?
You mean
I know they
ecologically?
worked a lot at trying to.
Like ecologically?
Yes.
The algae bloom still happens every
So
year.
that, of course, knocks
So,
out
but
all
it
the
happens.
oxygen.
It always happens in one particular area, and I think there has to be more done to help correct that.
Yeah.
Because if you're a sports fisherman, you obviously are going to fish there. But all the fish, all the aquatic species are going to go away from that, and they're going to show up in other parts of the lake.
We were on the Chesapeake Bay one year when I was younger. We went out to go crabbing and stuff, and literally they caught the red tide. It hit
Yes.
stuff.
Yep.
And that's all it is, algae bloom. And you could see the fish up on the water. I mean, they were trying to get air. Crabs would get out of the water and go on people's decks.
Yeah.
Like the decks in the water. I mean, you look, I said, oh my gosh. And there were no big fish. I think the big fish had cleared out, but smaller fish, they were literally struggling for air on the top of the water. It was really, and then of course, wherever they occur, crabbing sucks for months. I mean, it's pretty much knocks it out.
Yeah, because those toxins get into the shellfish or into the fish themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not edible because they essentially are poisoned and they're toxic to eat.
I remember that was terrible.
Now, what's fascinating to me is of all the things you've had, all the cookie jars you've had your hands into and all the different things you've investigated, what are you going to be doing here later tonight that you've never done before?
Table tipping. Yes, that will be. I'm going to sit in the corner with my recorder, and I'm going to watch you guys do it.
No, we want you at the table.
Oh,
it's
okay.
One, I mean, you can record some too.
Okay.
But it's one of those things because really that way you'll know.
Okay.
You'll be able to tell
You'll be able to
if it's being manipulated.
Right.
Okay.
That way is sort of is the way we can set it up where you sort of know. I mean, it's really wild. Now the only caveat is depending which table we use. Sometimes good friends or family members that have passed, may come through.
Okay.
So it can be emotional sometimes.
Okay.
Can also be whimsical. It can be all kind of flavors, but that way you'll feel it's almost like a static electricity somewhere. At times it's like cobwebs or cotton candy in front of your face, just and generally the room gets cold, and but you can find it. And so the other night, my mother-in-law lost her husband a number of years ago, and we were in here on a Saturday session. This is a week ago. Yeah, probably just a week ago or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And I felt my father-in-law's spirit come in. And basically, he was like telling me, if you can get 3 of my family members at the table, I can come through and present to them. So the next day, it turned out that he had a daughter-in-law and my wife, of course, and then his son was up on Sunday. So they came by the house, and we did a session in the back room. And Ethan came through, and his wife was there. She wanted nothing to do at the table. And she sort of put herself in the far end of the room. It was a good 6-7 feet from the table. And he slid all the way over to her. And then literally, they each had like a finger on the table. And it slid to 6 or 7 feet over to her. And it sort of tips. We call it a hug. Where it's like, and she was like this. It was really funny. Never had that, and she wanted no parts of it. And then when he was finished, literally, I think 2 of them had fingers on it and slid all the way back to its position. But and that was broad daylight. That was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't have to be dark or anything. It's just the spirits come in. Most of them, when they come in, they tell us they come in via a portal.
Okay.
Not all, but most of them.
Yeah, we have a little over a handful of resident spirits that are always here. Ira and the original builder, Ira, and his daughter, Eleanor, being the 2, I guess, highest on the food chain, so to speak. They kind of regulate who's allowed to come and go. But a lot of the ones we've had come through the tables have actually said, I saw this light and I came to it, and then was basically allowed in.
Right, they're allowed
I cleared
in.
the vetting
There's
process.
this hierarchy which we're sort of discovering, and they do.
They vet them.
They vet the
vets
spirit's
them.
energy, so they sort of keep out negative. Or sometimes it's not even that it's bad. Sometimes it's too emotional for the person at the table.
Okay.
They're not ready yet
To receive
and
that message.
To receive that message. Maybe it's close family member that the person here was at total odds with when they passed, and where they want to sort of rebuild a relationship on the other side. On this side, the people aren't really ready yet. They're for whatever reason. So a lot of times it's not that it's a negative spirit per se, but it's just too emotional for the person here. They can't.
Now, since you've been here this afternoon, anything happen? Any inclinations? Any feelings of being watched? Or
not really. I haven't really explored all that much because I was here and then went to Gettysburg, and now I'm back. We're doing the podcast, so I really haven't, walked around and
just let yourself
interacted
feel.
with the house yet. But I usually get the experience of disembodied voices. So I'm sure after everybody goes to bed tonight, and everything's quieted down, that's when they'll probably come and introduce themselves.
And so far, nobody's had a bad experience tonight. It's even if they see something or they hear stuff, it isn't really been alarming.
Yeah.
Right.
And Jerry's making faces over there, but he hadn't had a bad experience.
No, it's actually more reassuring than anything else.
Yeah, it's really it's nice. It's very endearing, actually. We had an experience recently where Dave's oldest granddaughter was getting a tonsillectomy, and my sister, who's often times over here, her oldest was here at the time, and he's having a rough time out in Chicago. And my mother come through. It was on Mother's Day in the afternoon, not to talk with my sister or me but to talk to a grandchild and great-grandchild and sort of reassure the one that she'd be with her for the operation. And the other, she identified when she was with him in Chicago, and it turned out, and he knew right away. It was a sign or a smell, and she said, it's a smell, and he knew right away it was mothballs. He didn't have a mothball in his house, but he said he's often smelled them. And it turns out she's around.
Grandma Terry, yeah.
So, yeah, we get a lot of.
See, but to me, that helps, at least for me, that helps strengthen my belief in the afterlife, because Grandma Terry she had passed before I even met my wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was nowhere near being born yet. So I had never met his mother, and I knew she hadn't.
Right.
But she knew who she was, and she knew that she was nervous, had some anxiety and uneasiness about the surgery, and basically came through and said, I'll be there with you, kiddo.
They all seem to verify there's oftentimes before an addition to a family, mothers, grandparents who have passed already often hold that child.
Before it comes to
And that's a storyline that's often repeated. And we had a situation where that same week, when my father-in-law's son and his wife were up, her mother, who had passed, his wife's mother, she came through at the table and wanted to know if they had just had a recent grandchild. And she came through and verified she knew, and then she rocked the child. So the table literally went in this rocking motion. Like it was almost like you'd be rocking a bassinet for about 10 minutes. It's just rocked back and forth.
When before my surgery even happened.
There's the one we were talking about.
Like before it even happened, I was in like the little chair or whatever, and I felt like a cold breeze. I'm like, what the heck? That was like chilly or whatever. I'm like, what the heck?
So that's why we really we're trying to maintain that special touch, because we've had so many people connect with loved ones, especially with the opiate crisis going on. So many families have lost a young one in their 20s or whatever, and typically the message is always they didn't intend to die. It wasn't like they were trying to commit suicide or that. And they're very sorry for what happened, because they sort of realized the pain and the anguish that they've inflicted on the family, and they're very repentant for it. So basically, they come through with messages that, they love the family, they're sorry for what occurred as a result of their actions, and they really didn't intend it. So Trump helps provide closure and stuff. What are we looking at time-wise here?
Got about 15 minutes left.
Okay. So now let me, just so I have your schedule, are you going to be with us tonight and tomorrow night and Saturday, or are you going to be somewhere else Saturday?
Well, I'll be staying here Saturday night, but then I'm leaving early in the morning to.
Okay, well, the reason I wanted to check was in case somewhere along there, I'll have to check with my sister. She has a star performing table.
Okay.
There's a hierarchy in the tables as well.
Okay.
And our top table is Jerry's well versed. There's a table named Emma.
Okay.
And Emma's amazing. Emma generally is responding in seconds.
Okay.
And she loves coming over here. She operates in the dining area here. And I'll see if my sister, I wanted where we can operate with any of the tables. I'd like to see if my sister might have some time either tomorrow or Saturday.
Okay.
If you're going to be here.
Sure.
That's why I was just checking, because I'd like you to be able to experience Emma. She's sort of, and Steve's always trying to get the tables to compete with one another. I don't know that I necessarily approve of that. We're thankful for what they bring us and do for us. But Emma is really special. Of course, she selected my sister, and my table was James, who got it at the same store, and James supposedly selected me. And Jerry's wanting to get a table, which we've got to work at getting him a table. So
don't feel bad, Jerry. Nobody selected me yet either.
Well, I had one, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, well, it seems to be working out for Linda now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one that evidently there was a spirit attachment. I told you
Okay,
earlier.
yeah.
We wound up doing a salt cleanse, and that
Okay.
would seem to rectify the situation. We're learning a lot of this ourselves too.
Right.
That evidently for Emma to work, my sister has to be at the table. That's a new thing we've learned. But yeah, so we are keeping our records of this stuff and trying to document it, and especially the truths that they're revealing to us. They talked a little while ago here about the importance of faith and prayers, how it sort of acts as a catalyst, where a loved one could be in a bad way, and so you might have spirits of energies around it, but sometimes they're really not able to operate or act for that individual without the catalyst of prayer and faith and that.
Yeah,
So-
it depends on, the family's religious
Exactly.
beliefs
Yeah,
and
very much so.
the person who's past religious beliefs. Because not, prayer doesn't always work for all situations. Sometimes you have to, burn some incense or
Yeah, and
light
then
a
some
candle.
people don't believe
So-
in that particular, those values, or they might. I know with the Native American spirits, because that's sort of a different, basis of the religion. I'm blindsided to them, and they wreak havoc on me. I'm a little fearful of the Native. I try to make peace. I make the offerings to them and stuff. And I've often been told they didn't mean to harm me. They didn't know their own strength.
Right.
But there's a lot to this. And the only thing, I guess, as a word to everyone out there is just always respect the spirit energies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to do things with a certain level of respect. Because if you can't respect them, then why should they respect you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's something
Yeah.
I'll say too is you see these people every time I go into a place, I get scratched or I get shoved or something yells and get out.
That's because they're all lining
Right.
up waiting to kick your ass.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Look at how you investigate. Look at your style. You provoke, you antagonize.
You
Um,
piss 'em off.
Yeah, you challenge verbally.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to deny that there are times when you need to be stern
Right.
and forceful, but respectful at the same time. And when you do like some people do, and walk in a place and why don't you come after me? You like to pick on women. Guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
They're going to do they're going to accept your invitation and put you on your backside and let you know just how small you are in the cosmos.
Yeah, the thought of being blindsided
Because
is something I
if
can't
you
see.
if you can't control the wind, you can't control the rain. You can't control anything like that. Then how are you going to stop the spirit from attacking you or It's all about respect. If how many people would be absolutely out of their minds if a stranger walked into their grandparents' house and started verbally assaulting them?
Yeah.
So I once again, before we run out too, I want you to go over those magazines again. 'Cause
Sure.
you said
Yep.
she's got some great projects on the way, and the magazines are all incredible. You can hit your point of interest, which is really nice.
Yes. So the website is squatchgqmagazine.com.
And Dave will punch that up on the thing. So
And our list of magazines is Squatch GQ, which is kind of a lighthearted take on Bigfoot and cryptozoology. It's geared more towards young adults. Squatch Digest is more scientific analyzation of research and evidence. G Hunters is the paranormal, ghost hunting, and elements of the unknown. Watchers is UFOs, aliens, just about anything with the cosmos. If it flies up in space, then that's what's in that magazine. Then we have Bodine the Bigfoot. He is our resident Bigfoot. I should see him at events all the time. He's a cool Bigfoot to hang out with. But this magazine basically documents his travels and his interactions with different people. And then we've got 2 new magazines coming out. One is Dinosauria, and
Now I'm gonna check that out. That
Dinosauria
sounds
and
great.
Prehistoric Creatures, which is all about dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures. And then Weird Travels, which is not just haunted locations, but interesting towns, with a claim to fame, fossil hunting, rock hunting, gold mining.
All those odd little roadside oddities.
Yes, places that,
World's largest ball of twine type of thing.
that, but there's, like Metropolis, Illinois, that is the Superman Festival,
Okay.
and capital of the world. Cool things like
I
that.
should go down to Dundalk and check out Hunfest.
Neat hiking trails and rock formations and stuff like that. So, places that people may or may not have heard of, but are really cool, and people should check them out and go get on the road and go do some investigating.
Shetan will be checking them all out.
Yeah.
So you have first-hand accounts
Yes.
of. So I guess there's sort of they've been tried and tested.
Yes.
So that's sort of neat. I think that's a great idea, because it's just we're hoping here through the Ghost Exchange and through the Hoover House, we're also hoping ourselves to, which I'll announce to the people, to sort of be a resource center too for groups or investigative groups, so that if you have a group and you do, for instance, private residence investigations, we're oftentimes getting inquiries from people who are having issues or things at their house. And realistically, it's a lot, especially nowadays, it seems.
And it's either they need help right away and we don't have the opening in our schedule, or it's of a darker nature, which is not our forte, and we are not versed enough to do anything but make it worse, or it's just quite simply out of our distance,
So we're hoping if you follow this show, or if you connect with Pam and Steve at the Exchange, and your group does that, it would be willing to help people out. We're talking basically residential things. If you would get in touch with us, give us the name of your group, a good contact source for that,
and a
where you guys
location
are
area.
located, and
So we
if you
can have kind of a
special-
database.
Right.
Yeah, to try to establish that, so that as people get in touch with us, we can refer people to these groups.
Because there may be groups who specialize in certain things that we're not familiar with or we can't handle, but their team or their name or they may not be out in the community as well as we are.
Are there any parks or I guess that kind of governmental agencies which ever call in, like for the cryptids in particular?
Not usually. Usually they try. Usually the park systems
hush it down.
Kind of hush it down, because their thought is, if this is here, nobody's going to come to our parks. We won't get people in, and we won't have income coming in. Here's the thing, though: people want to find these things. So,
See, now,
well, that's
me personally.
Varieties has been very vocal about.
Yeah, because my thing is,
They're always
if you were to, if you put it out there, you're keeping the people who could be harmed away, but you're bringing in the people who know what they're doing and can find this type of thing. And, everybody, well, you're still making your money. It's just off of the people who are more capable of handling the situation, as opposed to a family who's just out camping for the weekend and gets home.
Yeah.
So, well, I think,
So I
that's
think
about it.
I think next week we have our friend Mike Simpson and Kyla.
Kayla.
Starts with an S.
Kayla Simonton.
Simonton. I'm sorry. Will
Dayton
be our
Haunted
guests.
Explorers.
Dayton Haunted Explorers. They just got back from a fascinating investigation with another group at a place called Wilson Castle up in Vermont.
Okay.
It is beautiful estate, like 30-some rooms and 100 acres.
I think we could fit, 2 of these in it?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big place.
It's huge.
And I think it was only 5 or 6 of them.
No,
right?
no.
Or was it a
about
public
10 for
event?
the other group. No, them, their group, and
Right.
another group.
Oh,
And
I thought the other group was
yeah, I
smaller.
think
Okay.
there's about 8 or 10 in the other group.
And who will be doing a public event at the Bel Air House this weekend?
Yes, yeah, they have,
So-
and we'll go ahead and put a plug in for them.
Yeah. I think there's still a couple tickets left.
Mike
and
conducts
there-
a great.
There may be one room left, actually, if you want to check it out and
And
stay there
we're
this
looking
weekend.
at getting Dayton Haunted down here in the future to host an investigation that's going to be, anybody would be welcome, but we're going to really target it for more novice, newbies.
Okay.
Because Mike really is great about showing you how to investigate correct. And he just, I just love the way he conducts an investigation. He's worked a lot with, what was that group? The
Ghost Hunts USA.
Ghost Hunts USA.
Okay.
He's worked on and off over the years. And just really, I think he really adds a lot to an investigation and brings a lot of food for thought. So we are interested in having them down here in the future, and certainly they'll be our guests. And we'll find out what went on with that Wilson Castle.
Mhm. So everybody, stay safe. Have a good
I
weekend,
want to thank Sheet for being
Absolutely.
here, and y'all take care.
and
Be
we'll
safe.
see you next week.
Good night.
Thank you for joining Dave and Jim on Doorway to the Dead. Catch us next week right here at 8 p.m. every Thursday as we open the door to paranormal discussion and more.
It's in my
We're gonna have to
middle of my
put,
back.
we're gonna have to put pillows on these damn things for the show.